Video games, I know them, you know them, and even those within the halls of Congress know them. It doesn't matter if you only watch people play games or if you're the one struggling with this puzzle designed for 4th graders. We are all connected to video games in some way. But for a while now, players have started to ask questions such as, why do I like video games? What makes these games fun? And is violence the answer? I believe I have the answer to most of these questions, which involve in-game events and actions. So let's reach into the pile of games I have here and see which one will help us start this journey. To start off our journey into the question of why players enjoy games, we are talking about emotions. Yes, I know that you may be dead inside, but some of us were still able to cry at Bing Bong's death. Emotions are important because if the player doesn't have any emotional attachment to something in a game, they will forget both the thing and, in some cases, the entire game. The emotional attachment can be to such things as just an object, or it can be to an entire character. The best example of emotions working to help the player is in Celeste. For those who aren't familiar with this absolute masterpiece of a game, say hello to Madeline, our young protagonist who is currently in a toxic relationship with anxiety and depression. Madeline here has come to the conclusion that to get out of this relationship, she must climb a mountain like any logical person would. All jokes aside for a moment, the emotions and feelings that Madeline goes through during this game are ones that people everywhere have felt at one point or another. Before and after every main level, Madeline will talk about the past section, what she learned, and her thoughts on the journey ahead, and later on learn to control her anxiety and quite literally fights her other side. Just from the character's struggle alone, most, if not all players start to relate to Madeline, helping keep her in the minds of players long after they finish the game. You may also ask, wait, why does the character have to do anything with in-game events and actions like you said earlier? Simple. Remember how I talked about learning to control her anxiety and fighting herself? Well, the emotions of Madeline are presented the most within the situations, usually the little cutscenes that we get. And the emotions of the player react in a similar-ish way, since they have been with Madeline pretty much the entire journey, which leads to the player at the end of the journey feeling like they also accomplished something that was more than just a game. I would also like to mention the Doom series. You may be wondering, how does a game about ending all of hell use emotions? And if it even has any? And the answer to that is yes, it does. Without getting too far into its extensive and very, very messed up lore, let me just give you a bit of background story that connects to the most recent game. Doomslayer fought off demons on Mars and both its moons, then found his pet rabbit murdered by demons and thus defeated the demons again. Not just for his rabbit Daisy, but also to save Earth. And at the end chooses to stay within Hell so that they may never invade Earth again. He is then found in slumber about 200 plus years later, fights the demons again, gets betrayed, then finds out his unattended child Earth is being invaded again, and beats Hell back into submission again. The story may seem simple, I promise you, it isn't, but a lot of this information can be found through codexes found in the games, and shows us, the player, that no longer is Doomslayer concerned about the death of Daisy, his rabbit, but instead has found the purpose of protecting humanity from any and all threats that can end them, protecting the innocent, so to speak. And now, the player knows the emotions behind the character, leading to the player to feel a natural human feeling of helping the innocent, hopefully, leaving the player to be able to relate in some way to this very rageful and silent character. Alrighty, welcome to the world of thinking, or in other words, how to solve problems. Thinking in games is important, and I'm not talking about thinking of an idea exactly. I'm talking more about games that make us think about our actions, whether that be weapons and movement we can use, or when a game presents the player with a puzzle and the tools to solve it. So let's start with the movement shooter of Doom Eternal, where instead of looking at the story and emotions like we previously did, we look at him as he pretends to be Spider-Man. Look at this arena. It's massive, and it's intentionally designed that way. It gives you a massive arena and then fills it to the brim with enemies, then tells you good luck. The amount of enemies makes it so that you have to make space. and thus the enemies are designed to get close to you, meaning you must run around, dash into walls, and then use the different weapons it gives you. By the way, each enemy has a weakness that one or two weapons can exploit, meaning that the game forces you to think about what weapons to use for the situation or event in front of you, and then adds another layer to that by making the ammo a limited resource, meaning that now you must think about what weapons you can use. So let's combine it all in the lab. The different movement mechanics, the different types of enemies, giant arenas, many weapons, and finally, ammo. Yeah. Yes, this is perfect, a masterful movement shooter. I wonder, what about a literal puzzle game? This is Portal, everyone, a game where the slogan is think with portals. This game is a perfect example of how to make a good game and a unique game, and it came out over 15 years ago. The game asks you to learn how the portals work first, and then gives you your own portal gun, which you then immediately have to use to get out of the room you're in, which is smart. But it would be too easy if you just had to do this every level. So it starts adding in items such as boxes or the companion cube that you need to take through the portal. And now it adds walls that you can't place a portal on. And hey, look, now you have to do it all while trying to stay on a moving platform. See, the game understands that it gave you a tool that has many applications and almost limitless possibilities. And then it forces you to figure out all of the situations that it can possibly even be used for, learning its limitations as well. I mean, look at this level. You have multiple turrets looking around every single corner. Now, you could try and run past them all, but you probably won't make it very far. So what now? Well, let's try and take a block and use it to shield us. But that doesn't work either. Let's try something different. Put a portal above the turret and then put a portal on the ground. Then grab a block, shove it through a portal on the ground, and now we watch as the turret has a seizure. Repeat the process for every turret, and you're done. The game gives you a problem that seems very impossible. Then you remember about your portal gun. Then you realize that you're the god of this world, and anything that is still alive is only alive because you gave it permission. But thinking can also be affected by friends, so let's talk about being social. The social aspect of games is very, very important, because there's nothing better than watching your buddy die to a penguin equipped with enough gear to overthrow a small government. So whether you're watching your friend create the world's worst SpongeBob cosplay, or you're working for Amazon, friends make your experience with a game way better. The best example of this is Lethal Company. This game is about working together with other people to meet Amazon's intense quotas. The game encourages you to think as a group and be smart with your choices. For example, you can send everyone in the place and test fate, because if you die in that facility and there's no one alive, the ship leaves without you and leaves everything behind. Or you can leave a single person behind so that they can support you. The goal is just to gather scrap and other various items so that you can sell it. But as you explore, you will find various enemies and other random objects that are just there to cause your death, such as turrets or landmines. However, if you decide to leave someone at the ship, they can tell you where enemies are around you. They can also disable things such as turret and mines. They can open and close certain doors for you. It's all about communication. This is what we like to call teamwork, and it's a core component of multiplayer games. If a multiplayer game does this correctly, there is usually always enough time to work together and still find ways to do stupid things, such as figuring out how to disarm mines.
Did it work? Good news.
It did not.
Good news and bad news. Hold on. Let me test it.
Even when you end up dying, that moment or event makes you laugh instead of getting mad, which is a sign that these events cause amazing moments where your next action completely determines whether you and your buddy die. Here's the thing, however. Just because there's some sort of social aspect to the game, that doesn't mean it's great. I can play games like Fortnite with my friends for hours, and at the end, I can still say that I had fun, or usually say that I would rather eat a pizza and then just fall on the floor unconscious. I think I have a game that should help explain co-op very well. Here we go. This is Payday 2, a teamwork-based shooter about robbing banks and transporting nukes. And this game has now been built around playing with friends, and it has been for the past several years. And this all shows, because hitting your friend with a comically large spoon just gets you hyped. However, no matter how much goofy stuff you do in this game, doing the mission can still be extremely tough, since if one person messes up, the entire mission can become a loss. So just remember to tell your friend not to shoot an RPG into a building full of civilians. G into the building.
What did you say?
Do not shoot an RPG into the building.
Is in there.
Don't, no! Sake. Also, don't forget to dress yourself up, because this is where you and your friends are able to figure out who's going to win the ugly costume award. Holy is that Joe Biden?
Hello, people.
Joe Biden.
Chocolate chip. Oh.
Come play with me.
What?
Look, I'm a doll. Jeez. What the f*** happened to me? So remember, when the small event of a funny masked man going down happens, you must decide right then and there if you should laugh at them or help them. And just like that, we have reached the end of my rant. The video's entire point was to tell you why in-game actions and events are so important to a game's success. If a game is able to keep a player attached to something using emotions, then the player will remember it and any interactions involving it. If a game can get the player to think about the actions they take, or get them to think about the events of the game, then the player has a more memorable experience. And if a game uses social interactions in order to give players events and then create the actions from that, the player is able to act from these. It's these core components that make a game good, and answers the question of why we enjoy games.